Hey, welcome back. In this mini lecture, I'll be talking about Evgeny Morozov's Digital Dictatorship. Look at that little dictator right there. Morozov earned his doctorate at Harvard. He's an American Belarusian writer, researcher, and intellectual. In terms of his pedigree, was a visiting scholar at Stanford, contributing editor at Foreign Policy, Yahoo Fellow at Georgetown, a fellow at the Open Society Institute, and political social implications of technology are his bag. In addition, he's also been a TED Fellow where he's worked on the web's impact on civic engagement and regime stability in authoritarian societies. As well, he's had his work published in the New York Times, Wall Street Journal, Financial Times, etc., 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 etc. Apparently, he has his pencils sharpened for writing. Here's some thoughts on the digital dictatorship. The belief that free and unfettered access to information, combined with new tools of mobilization afforded by blogs and social networks, leads to the opening up of authoritarian societies and their eventual democratization, now forms one of the pillars of techno-utopianism. In response, if you analyze this in terms of if you're a techno-utopianist, this would be the formula. If you have free information, plus you have technology tools, that leads undoubtedly to open societies and democracy. However, that is unfortunately not always the case. Here's another quote. Our debate about the internet's role in democratization, increasingly dominated by techno-utopianism, is in dire need of moderation, for there are at least as many reasons to be skeptical. Ironically, the role that the internet played in the recent events in Iran shows us why. Revolutionary change that can topple strong authoritarian regimes requires a higher degree of centralization among their opponents. The internet does not always help here. And if you think about Graham Better's ideas of strong and weak ties, from this, it's like the idea that strong ties, where you show up with your friends, your family, to go to a protest for the purposes of regime change and revolutionary change, that's much better in terms of actually mobilizing change than the weak ties of using social media and the internet. Look at Stalin there. How handsome he looks. In the age of the spinternet, when cheap online propaganda can easily be bought with the help of pro-government bloggers, elucidating what fellow citizens think about the regime may be harder than we thought. Add to that the growing surveillance capacity of modern authoritarian states, also greatly boosted by information collected through social media and analyzed with new and advanced forms of data mining, and you may begin to understand why the Green Movement faltered. From this, what I would add to this is that when you have a bunch of diverse sources, this can actually again, it goes to the idea of the spinternet. It actually can make finding the truth, it can complicate this process because you don't know what side various actors can be on. It can be much more difficult to find those things out. And also for surveillance, the latter part of the quote, this can endanger dissidents who are trying to push back against an authoritarian state, because the surveillance capacity can impact them and they can be surveilled and punished if necessary. This is from, I believe it's cautioning from Charlie Chaplin's The Great Dictator. For the massive majority of internet users in those countries, increased access to information by itself may not always be liberating. In fact, it may only undermine their commitment to political dissent. As a result, for those people who live in countries with authoritarian regimes and authoritarian rule, they may hesitate to challenge regimes because they know that they could be surveilled, and that again may not liberate them necessarily. Facebook and Twitter empower all groups, not just the pro-Western groups that we like. To put it in a more formal framework, not all social capital created by the internet is bound to produce social goods. Social bads are inevitable as well. If you think about it, the people who use these tools, these platforms like Facebook and Twitter, say if you believe in empowering people and fostering free speech and democracy, people who are against free speech and against democracy may also use those tools for the exact opposite purposes. This is a quote about Robert Putnam's iconic book, Bowling Alone. In Bowling Alone, Putnam explicitly cautioned against the kumbaya interpretation of social capital, saying that networks are generally good for those inside the network, but the external effects of social capital are by no means always positive. So if you think about it this way, if you have a network, it can produce asymmetrical benefits. For those who are inside the network, they can produce social capital, etc., and other positives. For those outside the group, they may not have those access to that social capital, etc. So that was a discussion of Evgeny Morozov's Digital Dictatorship. Thanks, Lennon. Look how handsome you are in this photo, or this illustration. Thanks for listening. I look forward to seeing you again soon. Take care.